Hey guys, welcome to this Nomadic Idea show where we discuss the uncensored truth about living full-time on the road, whether you're in an RV, schoolie, van lifer. It doesn't make any difference. If you're thinking about getting into a nomadic lifestyle, this show is for you. My name is Scot with Ariane. We are This Nomadic Idea. We broadcast this show every Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube channel, and our audio podcast is available on our website Monday morning. It's also available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Amazon, all your favorite podcatchers. On this episode, which is episode 19, we are going to kind of talk about when is it too cold to stay in your RV or van. What is that breaking point? I'd love to hear what you guys think is that's just too cold. And the reason I ask is because the last 10 days I've traveled across the United States, and it's gone from like 40 degrees at night, not a problem, to 10 degrees at night up in Wisconsin, right off Lake Michigan, which was pretty cold. And you know, how do you plan for that? What are some of the gear pieces that you might need that could get you through a very cold night? We're going to talk about the difference between how RVers do it and what some of the drawbacks they have to manage cold weather, and van lifers. Who has it better, RVers or van lifers? We're going to talk about that on the show. And then we'll share some tips on how to stay warm, simple gear tips on how you don't have to freeze and how to stay warm, and we're going to talk about how to plan for that also. So get ready. Here we go. This Nomadic Idea show.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.
Shall we begin?
Let's begin.
Shall we begin?
By the way, we just launched our Facebook group, This Nomadic Idea. It's a private group. Come out, hang out with us. We're starting to put a lot of great info on there. So come on and join. Appreciate it. But we're also announcing caravan trips for 2022. And one of those trips was kind of out of the blue. Randy from Randy's Adventures invited This Nomadic Idea, which means you, to come out to Wisconsin in June and just have a great time. So we've got reservations for a campground. It's really in the center of Wisconsin between Green Bay and Minneapolis. And those dates are June 3rd and 5th of 2022. All the details can be found on randysadventures.com/summer 2022, or I'm going to put a link down below, and you can go ahead and click on that and go right over there and get all the deets. She shows you how to reserve a campsite and all that stuff. So it's RV, full hookups, the whole thing. You want to go check that out because we're going to be there and we're going to have a great time. So how does one prepare for freezing temperatures, whether you expect it or you don't expect it? And how do you get through that? And I know the big question, so let's get this out of the way real quick. Like, whoa, your home is on wheels. You can just go anywhere you want to when it's cold. You can just drive south. Not all the time. And especially when you have events or you have family issues like I did, trust me, there would have been no other place in the world I did not want to go than off of Lake Michigan in the beginning of winter. So, you know, and I had to be there. So, you know, there are times when you're living full-time on the road, that's your home temporarily or for the night or for whatever that case is, you're stuck in it. And so what do, right? So we're going to talk a lot about that on the show. So, and how do you make that decision? What's the breaking point? Like, what's your breaking point? Our breaking point, I would have to say, and this is our benchmark, is when it hits 15 degrees at night, and it's going to be a hard freeze for the next few days. And a hard freeze, as you know, is that it's probably not going to get above 35 during the day, and it's going to drop right back down. Of course, it's winter, they're long nights, and so things are going to start freezing. And that's usually our benchmark. If it's going to be freezing, it's going to be a hard freeze for multiple days, and we're going to be there, we start looking for alternatives. And I think that's our benchmark. And alternatives would be an RV park with hookups. You know, maybe you're staying at a friend's house and you got a mooch stock, which I did in Des Moines, Iowa, when it got down to 10 degrees. Or just, you know, you're just going to get a hotel room for the night and turn on the heat. Now, I don't know. What's your benchmark? Would love to know that. And of course, you know, with freezing, and we've experienced this in our Airstream, you know, things start going south when you're going to be stuck in cold weather for a long period of time. So one of the things that I know right off the bat is that RVs and van lifers and schoolies, they're all a different breed, right? And each one has its own different issues in cold weather. So for us, especially in the van, when I'm doing van camping, and we use the van a lot for camping, I slept in it a lot during this road trip, is that my van's a diesel. So it's a 7.3 liter diesel, so that engine can't really stay in cold for a long time. And I have to plug it in. So when it starts getting around 25 degrees, I've got to find that thing takes 15 quarts of oil. So I've got to find something to keep the crank warm. It's got glow plugs, and sometimes those glow plugs aren't going to work as well as if the crank is heated. So that's what the plug in front of the engine is for. It's to plug in. So I've got that issue. That's first and foremost. Well, RVers have an issue because they've got propane, and their furnace works off propane. And so they say, well, I have propane, you know, I can just turn on the furnace. But your furnace in most RVs work off a 12-volt battery. The propane, that's great. Electric spark fires it up, right? But the blower usually runs off of your battery. And that's where RVers, when they're going to be in multiple days of cold weather, may have issues if they don't have a way to charge their battery. Now, even with solar, you have a limited amount of time during the winter time to charge those batteries. And as we all know, winter isn't all bright and sunny. There's a lot of gloomy days, a lot of cloudy days. So for RVers, they have kind of a different issue and a different set of problems when it comes to extending their stay in extreme cold weather climates. For vanners, they probably don't have a furnace. They're probably using some kind of propane issue. And in this case, I use the Little Buddy propane heater, which really worked out well. And just so everybody knows, and I want to get this out of the way very quickly, is that if you're going to use those Little Buddy propane heaters, you have to have a carbon monoxide somewhere in the van, in the schoolie, or in your RV. That's really important, and you gotta have some sort of gotta have some air moving around in there. So you're gonna have to crack open a window if you're gonna be in a van. You're gonna have to crack open. They do have safety guidelines, you guys. So make sure you read those safety guidelines. Usually from the top to the floor, they're looking at a 4-inch ventilation area where air can circulate for those. But make sure you read the guidelines and make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector if you're going to use those. But they work great for me. I love that thing. It has really saved my butt a couple times when I've been camping in cold weather, and it works extremely well. So, and that's really what, when you're out there and you don't have hookups and you don't have any kind of electrical outlets, That's one thing that's my go-to for heat in the wintertime. And the other thing too is that if I do have an outlet or if I do have electricity, by far the electric blanket has worked for us in epic ways. Our electric blanket has paid for itself multiple times. We have never even put it on the highest setting. It's usually, I think it goes from 1 to 5. We usually put it on 3, and that's good enough. We've used that so much. So, if you're going to be, depending on what your situation is, whether you're in the RV or you're going to be in a van or you're in a schoolie, both of those products are going to work great. Because, for RVing, if you're boondocking, you've got possible pipes that, you are going to have to worry about freezing. Your 12 volt water pump is acceptable to freezing. And in our podcast, in the audio version, I tell you a really cheap hack on how to get that 12 volt water pump completely unfrozen in just a matter of minutes. That's on our audio show, so you gotta want to listen to that. We actually did it by mistake. It wasn't anything that we thought of before, but it is a great hack. The other item I would probably tell you guys to get, and this is like a no-brainer, is that invest in a Goose down sleeping bag. Those Goose down sleeping bags, because as a backpacker, I've camped in -1 degree in air temperature before, right? And I had a Goose down 0 degree sleeping bag, and I'm telling you, that will really keep you warm. So if again, van life or schoolie, RV, these products are for all three of those categories. Instead of using your propane all night and your furnace running all night, get into a Goose down sleeping bag and stay warm. If you have plugins, turn on the electric blanket. Odds are, and I would challenge you on this, odds are between the electric blanket and the Goose down sleeping bag, you don't turn on your furnace at night. Especially if it gets down to 20 degrees, I would venture to say you're not turning that furnace on. Now, you turn on the furnace for other reasons, depending on what your rig is, depending on other things that are happening in your RV. And on a hard freeze, things are just going to be frozen. That's just the name of the game. And you're going to have to run your furnace a lot. But a sleeping bag and a electric blanket, man, I'm telling you, they go a long way in frigid temps. And the other thing that you've got to kind of be aware of, especially if you're RVing in cold temps, and this is for extended stay. This is not one night. This is like you're going to be out there for a week or you're going to be out there for a month. Let me give you an example. Quartzsite, Arizona, a lot of snowbirds go down there. It's warm. You have mild days, but at night it can still get very cold, right? That's desert cold, dry, cold air. You got to understand that your propane bill, if you run your furnace, average, you're gonna run into about a $200 a month propane bill, and so that's a budget item that you're gonna have to account for. And if you're on a strict budget, you may want to look at that sleeping bag, and it'll pay for itself quite fast, instead of turning on your furnace each night. And especially if you don't have a way to charge those batteries, make sure your blower isn't running off the batteries, which in most RVs they do. So anyway, all these products are going to be listed on thisnomadicidea.com, episode 19. So go check it out. By the way, if you're watching the video tonight, tomorrow is Cyber Monday. So all these products, some have some pretty good deals on Cyber Monday deals on Amazon. So you want to check out too. So I also have the sneaky project that's going to save your 12 volt water pump. I've got that project. I've got that item on there too. You'll laugh when you see it, but man, does it work. So you want to go check that out. So I think all in all, the benchmark for cold weather camping or cold weather RVing is always going to be, your rig. What can you take? What can't you take? When does cold weather start affecting gear items that you can't afford for them to affect? Like frozen water lines. I mean, that's a hassle, right? So, look at, planning and preparing for cold weather. On our audio podcast, I also tell you what is just a fantastic YouTube channel that I watch for weather. This guy's great. I watch him all the time when I'm traveling. He really is specific. He gives you a lot of data. It's nationwide and it's also regional, where bad weather is going to possibly break out. Hail, wind, snow, rain. He covers it all parts of the country, and it's a really great YouTube channel. I'm going to put that link on this Nomadic Idea 2, and I'm going to put it right underneath this video so you can go ahead and take a look at it. So, love to hear, what is your cold weather benchmark? Some of the tips I gave you, I hope they help. Sleeping bag, electric blanket. I mean, if you don't have those in your RV, you are just missing just a beautiful, beautiful gift. The little buddy heater, absolutely recommend that for van lifers. And even for RVers, we have an on-demand water tank. We don't have a furnace, so I can't let that thing freeze. That's a $300 investment, and I cannot let that water line in that on-demand freeze. So, there has been times where I've put that little buddy on that thing to keep that air circulating all night long. I also open up all the cabinets. I open up all the doors to let air freeze. All my water lines are in the Airstream, so I do kind of have an advantage with that. I can get to them pretty quickly. So, but you have to know your rig, and doing a little planning and preparing, that can really save you quite a bit. On the audio podcast, I tell you our story in Moab that went all wrong. Winter, hail, snowstorm, blizzard, it all went wrong. And so I share that story. For those who want to do an alternative route, we've got a wood-burning stove. I don't run propane for heat. So, in that case, my budget item for winter doesn't really change. I get bio blocks from Ace Hardware. They're cheap. I get 12 of them for $5. So my budget in the wintertime doesn't really go up because of the wood-burning stove. And, of course, my wood-burning stove can heat 200 square feet very, very easily, and we're at 180. So we think kind of outside the box to make sure that we can boondock in cold weather for an extended amount of time and not suffer too much, unless you're going to get that sub-zero Arctic blast freeze where things just go wrong. Things are just going to go wrong. And again, I've got the diesel, so I've got other things that I've got to think about when it becomes cold, that frigid temps. But the sleeping bag, electric blanket has worked great. So anyway, you guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next Sunday, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Really appreciate everybody coming along. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and hit the like. Really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.